Hello, my friends. How are you? Happy Valentine's Day. Is that a good heart? I don't know. I'm not like really good at that kind of stuff. Here's a heart. Happy Valentine's Day. Mwah. I love you guys. I really do. Thank you again for tuning in and turning on and maybe getting turned on, turning in. I don't know what you're doing here, but, thank you so much for this. I am just feeling so excited about the day. I am not a lovey-dovey, big person that's like into like Valentine's Day or have any expectations anymore for what the day was going to look like. And so actually leading into Valentine's Day, I kind of was having not anxiety, but I had a lot of apprehension and like what I should do and, if I needed to make a card and, all these things. And finally yesterday, I kind of came to peace that like what today was going to be for me was going to be a celebration. My first thing to celebrate was going to be after 47 years, I can honestly say I love myself. Like, I love me. I love myself. And I know that sounds so like simple and cheesy. And who is this girl saying she's in love with herself or whatever? I'm not in love with myself, but I love myself. And it took a real long time to get to this place. And so I really felt like today and this year in particular, I really wanted to celebrate that because it took a lot of work to get to this place and to understand what loving myself meant. And, I think about all those times when, again, I felt like nobody loved me, nobody cared. And I thought about all the times in which I messed up. I made mistakes. I put myself in stupid situations. I did all these things. And then I thought back on how, like, opposite of love I was to myself. I would bully myself. I was like, you should have done this. Why did you put yourself there? Why did you do this? You knew this was a possibility. And I would just hammer myself. And I get like part of resilience is going through something and then learning the lesson. But in order to learn a lesson, I don't need to bully myself. I don't have to, inflict corporal punishment on myself and feel unworthy and stupid and ugly and dumb and all those things that, was my nature for some reason. I believed that this was the way to talk to myself. So after using that default setting system, my right hand for so long, every time I faltered, every time I made a mistake, I beat myself up cruelly. So that's why I say, if anybody says anything to me, it's like a giggle, like, oh, really? Is that all you got? Like, come on. Come on. I am very good with my words, mostly in my writing. Over here, I'm not as eloquent, and it's definitely a little bit more of a challenge. I say things a lot more beautifully on paper, in my own personal opinion. But I can say things so beautifully, but I can say them so cruelly to myself. And I really did. And it wasn't like I thought about it. It just was the natural response to anything I did wrong. And I'm the biggest person, the biggest advocate to even my kids and even myself, like, cool, you made a mistake. Yay. Actually, honestly, that's so great because you have this opportunity to learn. You can dwell on it and be upset and, do all these things, or you can take it as cool learning lesson. Like, I can't take this back, but I can learn. And then if I learn, even if it's not something that I potentially could repeat, perhaps this lesson can help somebody in the future, whether it be my children, a friend, a stranger, somebody, something. If all of the reason that I had to endure was to help somebody in down the line, then that just gives me some peace. And in order to get to that place, I can't just dwell on the mistake. I need to look at it from an exterior position and say, well, what can I learn? What can I change? What can I do? What can happen differently in the future because this, where is the lesson? And so I think that that's super important. And like I said, the thing that has changed most is that self-talk to myself. It was so mean, and I'm like, be nice, like, why are you being so mean to yourself? And I think I just didn't realize it. It didn't even dawn on me because it was such a default setting. It was so natural. It just was instinct to just go in and do this. And now it is becoming more and more of an instinct to have compassion, to give care, to go back in time, even if it's in my mind, in a meditation or following a meditation, or before I go to bed, or sometimes I'll have some downtime in the day and something has kind of organically, holistically came up that triggers a memory of my childhood that is still having an effect on me today, to go back in time and go back and tell that little girl or that teenage girl or that adolescent girl, this was not her fault. Like, don't even say anything. First off, like, I just go back and in my mind, I just hug me. And I know that that sounds crazy and kooky. I get it, because before I would have been like, okay, cool. I don't know, that's different, you know? And I just, one day it happened and I went back in time and I felt really sorry for myself. And so what I did was I just mentally went back. I went back to that room, or I went back to that instant, and I went back to that place where I was alone and sad and scared and in fear. And while I was in that place, I was also beating myself up. Like, I'm so stupid. Why would I do this? And you know, I should have done this. And instead of talking to myself with compassion, then I was just even adding insult to injury. And now I go back and I just give her a hug. That's all she needed. It was okay. You were doing your best. That, you know, this isn't your fault. You didn't deserve this. Even if you chose to put yourself in a silly situation, that's okay. It doesn't mean you deserved whatever happened to you. It doesn't mean that you need to punish yourself for, what is it called? Perpetuity? I don't have to punish myself forever because of the decisions I made then. I can let them go. I can hug myself, and I can sit there and we can, in a way, mentally sit there. And I know this sounds like crazy, but I could sit there and cry with you and say, this sucked. That sucked. Like, you really didn't deserve that to happen to you. And it's so sad. It's unfortunate. And we can grow from that and heal from that place. And I can take that strength and that power and say, we learned, and it sucks that that happened, but every little minute and every little decision and every little trauma and tragedy that has occurred has all been a fabric in this beautiful quilt of who you are today and who I continue to change to. And I see the different patterns and times of my life where, you know, I wore this grit and this tenacity and this power and this strength, and I carried myself so strong, and nobody will mess with me, and even if they do, I'm not going down without a fight. It was like I had something to prove to myself. I couldn't go back at that time and embrace myself with kindness and understanding and support. I did not know how. I didn't have those kind of tools. And if I did, I didn't know how to use them, and I didn't know how to use them on myself. I wouldn't say that that was my natural instinct. Even with my kids, when they were born, I was never a hugger. And I remember like having to consciously learn how to sit and feel uncomfortable at first when my kids would hug me. Now, they were little, and so it grew. But even just to be touched, I really didn't like being touched at all. Like I felt tension in my body. I preferred not to have that experience. And my oldest son, he loved to touch, and he would just like rub my arm. He would always be touching me, you know, and and at first it was just such a challenge, like to sit there in this uncomfortable. I just wanted to run. I think, you know, from so many times, like people touched me unsolicited, and I'm not saying he was touching me in those ways or anything, but just my body naturally just I did not want hugs. I did not want touch. None of that stuff. It was just very uncomfortable for me. And so I remember having to say, I don't want to reject my children's touch. Like, my kids want a hug. I want to be able to hug them. And I don't want to be like this stiffened robot. I want to enjoy the hug with them. And it's so interesting now because I really worked on it a lot. And I wouldn't say like I am nowhere near like, my love language is personal, touch or anything like that. Not at all. But I have worked on it to where, like I'm not uncomfortable in a hug. And I've even found myself even, so much as yesterday when I was at the bakery, I was like, I'm going to give you a hug. Like, I just feel like I get a hug now. I understand. And when I am the giver, I'm not sure how it feels on the other end, but when I am the one initiating it, I don't feel any type of, before it'd be like so awkward, like, oh gosh, I gotta hug you now, here's the time we're leaving or we're arriving someplace and now I have to hug somebody. And it's not like that now. Now it's a lot more natural. And the ironic thing is how much my oldest son loved to like touch and everything. It was like literally when he was sleeping, he would just rub my arm and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like too much touch for me. And I would just, sit there and I was just like, it's your son, it's okay. I had to do a lot of like self-talk about it. But I never really got to the root of, well, why is it I don't like touch? I just thought I didn't like it, So I was a very kind of, I'm very smart. I'm very nurturing in my own way, but I'm not this like, oh, lovey-dovey, kind of mom. It's just not, that is not me whatsoever. And I'm becoming more where I ask for a hug for my kids and like I want it, but I also I want to respect that some people don't want a hug right now, and I want to respect their own thing. My oldest son, he does not like touch now, ironically. He doesn't like touch, he doesn't like hugs, he's like, why are you touching me? And it's so funny because like when I hug him, I feel like it was me when I was his age, and just the stiffness and the, like the dread and I totally get it. So I'm like, I will not push my agenda. I would love to give you a hug, but if you don't want one, that's okay. Like, no, I love you and I can show you my love with my words, actions or other ways. And so even yesterday was cute when I dropped him off the airport. It was kind of like we're sitting in the car and I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a quick hug. And, we both just did it more or less a shoulder pat in the car, side hug thing. And, that was fine for him or whatever and fine for me. So, yeah, I think that it's just interesting. So after all these years of punishing myself, as no better word to say, I was punishing myself for things that I had done, things that I had chose, situations I had been in that I had fault of or no fault of. And I felt responsible for a lot of the things that occurred around me, and that somehow, some way, that life would have been better for me, my parents, my brother, my friends, anybody else, had I would have decided to done something different. If I would have did more, if I would have done less, if I would have not been there, if I would have been there. And it was like this weird situation where I felt like everything in a way depended upon me and what my choices were. And that was just so not the truth, right? That the world's going to still continue to spin around when I am no longer here and part of it. And situations that like I used to be so engrossed in have gone on fine without me in my input. So that has been a very figuring that out and understanding that the world will still spin without me has actually been very liberating. And it makes me feel not so responsible for everything and everybody else. Like, it's kind of like, okay, good. Then I can take that weight off of my shoulders. Thank you. I don't know why I was carrying it around. I don't know where in my mind I thought that this was my job and my responsibility to take care of everything and everybody else. But I am retiring from that position. Thank you for your service and thank you for trusting me, but it is time for me to stop. So yeah, I think that for so long, I didn't understand this concept of loving oneself. And, you know, it was one of those things you heard of and you were just like, yeah, right. Like, who does that? And it just seemed so foreign. And, you know, it wasn't like one day I woke up and I was like, you know what? I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. No, it's not been like that. What it has been for me has been a very, again, I start with this, and I think that this is the key to all of any change in life. It started really small. It started that day that my therapist gave me the list and was like, what do you do for self-care? And I looked at her point blank and said, what is self-care? And I wasn't being funny, you know, because I do like, I will say a lot of like funny and like, she's always like, what, you are too much sometimes, you know, like she is over here laughing with me at the things I say. But, it wasn't about being funny at that. It was dead serious. Like, what is self-care? No, I don't. Nope. Nope, 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 no, 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 no. And so, like I said, it began with taking myself out to lunch. And I know that seems weird. And it wasn't even easy. It was like, oh my gosh, where am I going to go? How much can I spend? Like, it was a big angst to do it. I have to do it. You know, if I'm telling somebody I'm going to do this, I told my therapist, and it was assigned homework. I'm a person who's going to do what they say they're going to do. And I'm going to do my homework. I'm a good girl and I'm a good person. And I want my therapist to like me. And I don't want to be all upset. And I don't want to make up a reason, an excuse why I couldn't go to take myself out to lunch. Or, you know, she said I could pick anything and I'm picking this thing. And because I like to eat. And I do know of a restaurant that I can go that's not too busy and nobody. So I make this whole thing out of it. And I get there and I do it. And that was... my gosh, my daughter's about to graduate college, and this was when she was in 7th grade. So let's do some quick math. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, like 9 years ago. And I did that. And you think, okay, it just kind of built. No, it was like I did it. I stopped. All of a sudden, you know, my uncle got sick. My aunt got sick. My uncle got sick again. Like, my uncle was now a widow. My kids got sick. There were tumors and broken these and ACLs and graduations. And there were so many things that got filled in the way. That self-care just, again, was like, this is not part of my default system. I didn't have a routine and habits in place to integrate it in. And I really probably could have used it at that time, but there was simply just such a lack of time. You know, things got crazy when, you know, then if my daughter's in 7th grade, my oldest is in 9th grade, you're going through high school, you've got 4 sports that are year round, and you have a business, and I had employees at that time. And, you know, there were so many things pulling at me. Everything was in survival mode, just doing the most with the least, and just making sure the kids were where they were supposed to be, and fed and clothed and at doctor's appointments and dentist appointments, and, you know, those were scheduled, and you know, it was really, really complex. And like I said, I didn't spend a lot of time nurturing myself. I just was this robot, this vehicle to get everybody to where they wanted, appease everybody. If somebody was a squeaky wheel, I gave them oil. If somebody needed something, I did my best to facilitate that for them. In addition to like just being their mom and talk with them and have like moments and memories and things that are lasting, you know, beyond just surviving the day in and day out. And so it really wasn't until, for whatever reason, you know, the real catalyst for me began at the end of 2019 when my aunt passed away. Like I said, for some reason in my mind, as she was sick and as I was watching her slowly demise as the cancer consumed her body and the tumors grew back, all I could think to myself was, if I knew I only had 100 hours left, what would I do? What would I be doing? Who would I be spending that time with? Because at that point, what does it matter? Do bills matter? Do your credit cards matter? Does your house matter? Does the car you drive matter? Does the number in the bank matter? To me, no, none of that matters. If there's 100 hours left to live, no. I'm like, kids, you're getting out of school. we're going to Europe. You know, hopefully I would be, if I knew I had 100 hours to live, I would hope I would still be this viable, right? I'm going to have some conditions in this, but I would still be, I mean, we're going. There's 100 days. At the end of 100, clock is ending. We're going. We're doing this. And, you know, this would be my thing. Obviously, it's up to them if they want to go. But that, you know, that's who I would want to spend time with. I'd want to go see the world. I'd want to go explore things. And so then I had to say to myself, okay, and I'd want to write. I'd want to get things written down so that my kids have this legacy. So when their memories evade them, that they have my words to fall back on. And that, you know, as their mom, you hold a certain standard, right? Especially when they're young, they don't know the whole story. They don't know. And there's a lot of things that I did divulge only because, again, they happened to me. And for sake of being, hey, if this happened, and my philosophy is if I couldn't prevent this from happening to me, if I made this mistake, or, you know, this thing happened to me, I can at least use it to educate and inform you. And again, that doesn't guarantee that this won't happen to you, but if it does, A, you know you're not alone, and B, you know I'm here. I can talk with you with it if you choose. And C, it's okay. Like, it will be okay if this happens. Like, you will get through this too. And so, you know, you can't, doesn't mean just because it happens to me now, that means that my generation, the next generation, my children, you know, they don't have to go through these things. No, that doesn't mean that. I wish, right? That would be so great. That would be so easy. Like, checked off, that's done for that family. They don't, you know, no, can't have those things happen again. Unfortunately, that's not life. So, you know, I thought to myself, what would I do? And then I would say, well, what's stopping me? Because I don't know. Perhaps I only have 100 hours left, right? And if I don't say the things I want to say to people, if I don't do the things I want to do, if I don't get clear what it is I want to do, because that was the next thing. Well, it was like, well, then what do you want to do? And for so long, it was so dependent upon, well, what do you want to do? And what restaurants do you want to try? And I just didn't even have any clue of who I was. And so the next part of the journey was a really beautiful part because, you know, this is when, you know, when my auntie and my uncle were now living at my house, which meant my auntie was home here on hospice. And then my uncle, we were like, you can't, you know, we want you guys to be together. And so he came too. So our house was like a hospital here. There were 2 hospital beds in our living room. And I say, again, we are not living in a very large house, but we did what we could. And we opened our home and our hearts to them. We would sit and play chess with them, play games. I always had this beautiful music on. The hummingbirds would come. The windows would be open because it was a lovely, like, the late summer in California is really warm. Sometimes it can be actually very hot, but it's very warm. It's a very it feels like a blanket. It's a beautiful time of the year. There's lovely sunsets. Everything is in bloom still. It's just a great time. So I had my fountain on because I love water, and, you know, it would just echo throughout the house. And when my auntie came in, she just looked in such peace. She had the biggest smile and she was so happy to be here. And she just hugged me and was just like, thank you. She was so grateful for this gift to be able to spend her last days surrounded by loved ones and in this peaceful environment that required nothing of her. She had to do no work. She didn't have to lift a finger. Everything was done for her. And all that we had to do was sit with her and talk with her and listen when she could still talk and pray with her. And we had, you know, pastors come in and different kind of spiritual people came in from the hospice, which was really fascinating. I mean, they really did they had lovely nurses that came in and really supported us and her especially, and gave us certain supplies and things that just made life that much easier and taught us techniques of how to, you know, change somebody and how to change the bedding and do these things so that it didn't kill us, even though it was still back-breaking work. And I felt like that was just such true love. If I could ever say thank you in an action for the sacrifices she made to be a part of my life when my mom couldn't be a part of my life and my dad was busy working, and for opening my eyes to art and music and dance and creativity and inspired me to live my dream and be frugal. And, I think that she was a remarkable woman who still leaves her impact today on this world. And I thought that this was the kindest thing I could do in the kindest possible way. I could say thank you and I love you to you. And having her husband there. And then, so my uncle, while this was going on, that is when he was like, we are embarking on this. We're still in this universal lesson. So I believe it was shortly before my auntie had gotten sick that he said this had this epiphany. We're on this universal lesson and it's going to be a very long one. And then he reiterated that when he's here, this is all part of this lesson. And I really am learning. And so from that, like, he always brought in a very philosophical, alternative, he really opened my mind to exploring different ways of living, different ways of thinking, to question things, to not just be in this default setting all the time. And so, I again want to be this good girl and I want to get things right. And so he would often question me and I would be like a deer in headlights. I don't know the right answer. And, at the end of the day, there really wasn't a right or wrong answer. He was just encouraging me to think what it is I want and to feel what I want. And he was huge on meditating. And he would say, how long can you meditate without the monkey brain coming in? And it wasn't very long. And he said I could get to 20 minutes. And he was just a very, he wasn't always this way, or at least I didn't always know this part of him. But in the end of his life, in the last few years, he really, because he almost was forced into this situation, being bedridden and had been hospitalized and deciding to leave himself on hospice. And then he was on hospice for a year. He got kicked out of hospice because he survived hospice. He's like, not many people do this. So he ended up getting, off of hospice. And he definitely had such a unique way of looking at things. And he opened my mind to so many possibilities. I loved that he would have those lessons. Like I was saying, he was so prepared. So like me coming in here unprepared, he was prepared for these things. He would say, okay, he would call me the night before. The topic is this. And then he would also have a word of the day. And I always thought that was fascinating because I thought it really enriched my vocabulary and it really educated me, because a lot of my, again, default settings thought I knew what a word was. And then I would, say, oh, I know that word. And then we would, ask Echo, and the Echo would tell us, and oh gosh. And, the devices would tell us what it was. And I was like, that's so interesting, because I always thought this word was this meaning to it. And it turns out it was something different. So it was really interesting to learn so much from him. And I loved how he would integrate, like in our lessons, a lot of playlists. Like he would say, okay, my playlist, play my playlist, like lesson 29 or whatever it was. And it would go with the theme of that. And he would tell a story that related back to his childhood or his friends or, somebody he knew. And so I loved hearing the stories. And he would get super emotional when he would share some of the things. And sometimes our lessons would include a like snippet from YouTube. You'd be like, okay, so now we're going to watch the YouTube. And he would try to keep it to 30 minutes. That was his sweet spot. He too wasn't always concise, but he was kind of a rule follower in that he would be like, okay, 30 minutes up, we're done now with the lesson. And, I would just be trying to feverishly write it down. And for a couple of the lessons, I recorded them. And I do have a regret and I don't like having regret. And so I think that this was the encouragement for myself to do this way. I'm disappointed I didn't film more. And we would talk about it like, let's film this. And he would say it. And I know the reason why I didn't want to be on film was because I was 300 pounds. And straight up, I was like, there is no way I'm going to be here on TV or on, the internet for the whole world to see me at 300 pounds. And yet that's how the world saw me for 20 years. So, God forbid they see me in my natural state, but this, was the mentality about it. And I was also insecure about, they were hoarders. And so, the mess in the house, and, people would see the mess and what would they think, and who would want to listen to us. And, I just went into all these reasons why it wouldn't work and why no, instead of just doing it and taking the chance. And what if not? If the only thing that came out of it was I can go back and rewatch those lessons, that still would have been a gift. That still would have been a blessing, because regardless of how thorough my notes were, it doesn't have his voice or his tone or, the exact thing it can reference. Okay, go to listen to this playlist or go to this page in his book. He kept meticulous notes. He called himself a lab rat. And so he had like notes. He kept notebooks and be like, okay, here at this time, this person called me. At this time, I had my lunch. So some things were kind of mundane information, and then other things were like, I miss Betty right now. And then he would draw a picture and have two hearts linked in together, and or he would write a story or something in there. And those things are my favorite, right? They're the stories. Okay, it was 54 degrees. Okay, that's cool. Like, I don't know. It's data. It's interesting, I suppose. And for him, it maybe had been, some impact. Maybe he was saying, do I feel better when it's cold? Do I feel better when it's warm? So perhaps there was something there for him, but for me, I just want, like, give me the juicy details. Give me the stories. That's what I'm looking for. And, like I say, if I would have just recorded more of us together, or even just him, I would have been a lot happier to have that that like resource, that form of communication, right? We obviously can't pick up the phone and call him anymore. And I think about it because I think today's Valentine's Day, and he was so sweet to me, and he would always call like, happy Valentine's Day, and he just, like I said, he used to call me every day at 9:30 in the morning. And, for some reason that he, I guess my dad had one time told my uncle had called him early in the morning, and he was like, it's inappropriate to call anybody before 9. And, had kind of scolded him. And so my uncle took that like to heart, and he was like, okay, and so he would often say like, I don't call anybody before 9 now because, your dad said it's not appropriate to do that. And, but I've been up since he followed this circadian rhythm. So he would rise with the sun and go to sleep with the sun, rise with the sunrise and go to sleep with the sunset. And, that was how he preferred to live. And so, when people called him late at night, he didn't like it or appreciate it because he went to sleep early or came by to visit. He was more of a morning person. And so he was like, but I tried to be very compromising and open to the way that other people don't live the way in which I live and choose to live. And so he would always call me at 9:30, and sometimes I could answer and sometimes I couldn't answer. And I would call back when I could afterwards. And some days life would get to me. And sometimes when life gets to me, I don't want to talk on the phone. And especially then, it was just a very overwhelming time. And between, and I get it from his perspective, too, that he would keep calling because he was lonely, right? And especially like during the pandemic when, he had just lost his wife in October of 2019, the end of October. And suddenly there's a pandemic. And like right before that, my daughter had gotten really sick. What we all believe was she was like one of the first kids to get COVID in the United States. And they didn't know to test her or anything. We were at Stanford for days and days and weeks, and they didn't know. But by the time like it was happening all right then and there, by the time she got out of the hospital, the schools were already closed down. By the time she was in there, like she started, everybody was coming in, but then everybody was in full gear with her. The visitors, the first day her siblings could come. By the end, I was the only person allowed to come in there. Just crazy to like be in the hospital. And because she was a kid and kids weren't, in the group in which they were like thinking they could catch it. And we were at the children's hospital and not the adult Stanford hospital. It was quite an interesting experience. So yeah, she ultimately, I think, you know, after she got like, and it ended up like, I was telling him, I'm like, she needs steroids, she needs something to open her, like, she could not breathe. It was really bad. But the funny thing is, I was just sitting in there, you know, mask free and no, you know, I was totally healthy and fine, thankfully. So, but then, you know, there's COVID and there's shutdowns, and now his world has now gotten even more smaller. Um, and he, you know, all the friends and people that were coming over, now everybody's afraid to come over. He is an extreme high risk, having had heart defects, and only 10% of his heart is working, and had a stroke and all these things. So people were scared to come over, and, you know, and then he was like not a believer in all of this whole virus and stuff. He's like, oh, it's propaganda, it's the talking heads, you know. So he had his own philosophies about it. So he would have people over with and be like, oh, don't you don't have to wear a mask here and stuff like that. And then people wouldn't, and then I was afraid, you know, I'm like, what if they gave it to him and then he gives it to me, and I'm trying to keep my kids healthy, I'm doing everything, I'm going out looking like a ninja here with like hoodies, eyeglasses, masks, gloves, you know, looking like an absolute freaking out. And it's so funny because I look back, I had taken a Snapchat of myself. I was like, I just want to remember this one day, because I'm sitting here, I'm about to go into Safeway, and I was like, if I would have walked into Safeway like this like 6 months ago, people would have probably thought I was robbing the store. You know, they'd be like, what is wrong with this woman? Something is up with her. And then I remember, like, after all these precautions of going in the store, I remember stripping in the garage, putting the stuff into the washer in hot water, all the groceries down, wiping everything down before it goes in the fridge. I mean, just wiping the mail down. Our mail was wet. It was so stupid. Like, it just was so, you know, fear will do crazy, crazy things to you. And when your goal is to protect your family, that mama bear came out, and I was like, listen, I don't care if the mail is wet. It is just not worth the risk for me. You know, I don't care if I need to spend 20 minutes wiping down the milk cartons and, you know, watching YouTubes on how to soak the fruit. It's so like, in hindsight, it was so stupid. It was so extra. But I was like, at least my family's healthy, you know? And so I would be afraid sometimes to go visit my uncle, because I knew people were not being as cautious there. And he was like, I don't care, you know, I'm immune, I can't get it, and all this stuff. I was like, what? You know, no, like, maybe, I don't know, but I'm not willing to take those kind of chances. And, you know, there were times that we considered even having him move in with us, and our house was already so chaotic. Like I say, we had middle school, we had one in 7th grade, right? Was it? I'm trying to think now. Gosh, I'm getting old. I had one in 8th grade, one in 6th grade. So it was 2 middle schoolers, and one a freshman in college. Well, it was first high school, so a 12th grader in high school, and then a sophomore in college. So yeah, it was just all of a sudden you have all these people plus all of Chris's work, and Chris was in tech. And so he was talking to everybody about how to use their tech and integrate this and how to use Zoom. And he is notoriously, he's been to a lot of concerts of heavy metal, and he is probably has some hearing loss. So he speaks very, 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 very loud. So you have him, you have the 2 boys in school, you have Karina and Brad in school, all in different hours. And I was also working, but mine wasn't on the phone as much. I was doing loan processing at that time. And I was mostly on the computer. Every once in a while, I would be on the phone. But you have a lot of people, and even to think that I would have my uncle in here and all this stuff, like, we offered it, he declined. There was a part of me that was so relieved, because there, you know, he was like, you guys all move in here. I have this big 5-bedroom house. It makes more sense for you guys to move here. And everybody's like, hell no, we're not moving there. No. It was still so, there was still so much stuff there. And yes, in some ways, like, he was like, you guys are so silly, like, just move in here. And I'm like, but they eventually are going to go back to school, and they want to be in their house, and they want to be in their room. Like, nobody was on board to move there, unfortunately. So we did not do that. And I wish we could have been there more for him, but I did the best that I could. And, I'd always bring him food, and we'd cook food and bring it to him. And, whether I would go in or not, sometimes I would and be like, okay, I'm going to open the window and stay over here. It was just such a tricky time to navigate, as you all know, and you all did on your own. But, it took all of that. My whole point of it all, it took all of those scenarios to align to finally get to that point where I honestly felt like I could no longer live. I spent every minute of every day giving to somebody else. I had beyond neglected myself and beyond depleted any possible reserves, and that the only solution was just to not exist anymore, because I could not see a way out. I could not see an alternative to that. And so at that time, I began kind of going to the beach, and I just needed to get away. And thankfully, the beach, for whatever reason, just being in that nature, hearing like the sounds of the waves were so loud, it just drowned out the sounds in my head. And I just sat there in peace. And that was like my first step at doing kind of self-care and realizing I need this. And so what started off, it had to be like put into my calendar and be like, self-care Sunday. This is my day. I am not a mom. I am not Natasha. I am just going to go take care of myself. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that means I'm going on a hike. I don't know if that means I'm going for a drive. I don't know if that means I'm going to lunch. I don't know, if I can spoil myself and go get a massage. Oh, I love massages. Or get my nails done. Something. But this day is dedicated to me, and I really needed to put it in paper. And when I first started, there was so much resistance from my family because I was on call 24/7, 7 days a week for the simplest thing. Like, hey, Mom, where are my socks? I don't know. Let's take a guess. Let's take a gander. Where do you think they would be? Before it'd be like, oh, top drawer, third there, here's where they are. They should be. If you want the black ones, they're over here. But if you want the white ones, okay, if you're looking for soccer socks now go to the other drawer. And I was just available to them. And that's where I go back to say is like the lights still turn on its access when I turn my ringers off and I turn, my do not disturb on. Life went on. They found their socks, and maybe they weren't matching, or maybe they weren't the ones they wanted, but they learned and they figured it out. And that's part of life too. And by stepping back a little bit, I am empowering them even more, because they can do things on their own now without the reliance on me. And I no longer need to feel needed by them to know I'm worthy or loved or appreciated. So it started for me with just doing that making this choice. And I had to do, again, a whole day and say, okay, this is my self-care. And this means I can eat when I want to eat. I don't have to eat. I can pack a lunch. I can, and I really made a lot of effort. And it was a lot easier to get to the beach then because there were the shutdowns. So there wasn't too many people around. The roads were fairly, empty for the most part. And I went and did that. And that was really helpful for me. And I think once life started to get back to normal, I realized that there was a challenge to still balance this person that could go off and do this all the time, especially on a Sunday when my kids have games and, there's two parents and the games are into opposite places. And then I still also wanted to show up for them because, again, like I say, this time with my kids is finite. Like this chart I was just telling you about, it was very, it just reminded me of what I already knew, where, your time with your kids is, it goes up from, how much time you spend with them from the time they're born. And then when they go to school, and then it kind of starts trending down. And then when they get into their 1920s, 30s, it plateaus, and it's not a whole lot. And every moment I get with my kids, and my kids are here, is such a bonus, and it's such a treat. And But I do know, again, that's on borrowed time. They're going to go off and live their lives. They're going to get married or not, or have, you know, their own careers and their own life paths. And that was my job, right? Is to help them, to encourage them to use their wings. And I don't want them to live my life or the life. I don't have a plan for them, because this is my life. And you know, if I have a plan for anything, it should be my own. I don't have any plan for them beyond, I hope that they do something that brings them joy. I hope that what their work is doesn't feel like work, because I want them to be happy. I don't want them to be in a place where they feel so drained and so depleted and so miserable that the only alternative for them is just simply not existing. And that's how I had felt, or numbing themselves, or silencing themselves, you know. So my only wish for my kids is that they have the courage to explore what their passion is. And like I've said in the two stories of these lovely Claudia and Simone, it didn't come the first go. And for me, it didn't come it wasn't like this was my dream when I was a little girl. But every minute I do this, every minute I dance, every minute I write, and every minute I'm filming, I feel alive. It doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like a workout. It feels like I'm living. It feels like breath in my lungs. And I can't imagine right now my life without any of these. And that doesn't mean that in a year from now it might change and new things may have taken those places, or it might have grown deeper and I do them more often. I don't know. But the point is to try the things and see where it naturally goes. And then the answers come. You know, sometimes we try to force it and we're overthinking and we do these things. Like I said, all the reasons why 4 or 5 years ago I didn't start filming were so silly in the long run, right? It was so silly. And all the reasons why people were like, you should really film your journey, and the reasons why I didn't decide to do that. And I documented it all in writing. But the reason that I didn't film it or take a million photos of the change was because I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that I could actually do it, or I would do it, or I had the determination, even though I knew I did have the determination. It's just there was this doubt, because statistically speaking, people who lose weight naturally and, you know, healthy without relying on gastric bypass or lap band or Ozempic or, you know, weight loss medicines or extreme diets and things like that. Many people, it's a challenge. It's really hard to change your whole lifestyle. And for me, A, I'm frugal. B, I don't like taking medicines. C, I get afraid to go to sleep. I'm afraid to be put under for surgery or any kind of procedure, because I know that there's a risk that I won't wake up. And I know, even though I felt like before that I was so depleted that you know, my only solution was I didn't want to exist, but now I love my life and I want to exist, and I don't want to be part of a world that I'm not in. I want to see my kids, you know, I've worked this hard with them. I want to see, you know, the fruits of the labor. I want to see how they grow and how all the wonderful things that they're going to choose and do. I want to be a witness. I want a front row seat to that. And, you know, so I'm not willing to take this risk and do something to my body unnaturally. Everything I'm doing is replicable. Like, there's no special meals I'm eating. If you consider pizza a special meal, then that is part of my diet. Today I had 2 pieces of cake. Thank you, Simone. They were delicious. And, you know, I had a 3-item bento box with my son because we went out to Valentine's lunch together. And, you know, so, I mean, I'm eating well. I'm eating very well. And I'm still able to do all the things I want to do and exercise, and I'm achieving the, you know, healthy goals that I'm looking for, because I'm able to, my body is able to sustain all my dancing and workouts and stay fairly injury free. And that's the goal here. I want to just keep moving. So, you know, I had all these reasons why I shouldn't do it or don't do it. And now all those things that once I began doing the things. So again, I go back to the self-love, learning how to self-love. Here was the whole point of this entire, this entire 49 minutes. We're getting to it, guys. Thank you for bearing with me. But as you know now, it's all a big story, and it'll come back together at some point, hopefully. So, but the whole point was, so I came to this catalyst. I did the big things, but I realized again that was a challenge when life went back to normal to sustain. And what I found for me is the key, is the secret, is doing small things that are sustainable. And so when I do the small things like make my bed, and I'm going to go back to that because that's where it began, is that I am saying, I love you. Like, I love me. I love my environment. I used to keep my room a hovel. It was so filled with clothes. You would walk in, stomp over clothes. I hated the clothes in the first place. When you were overweight and you go into a store, it's like, what will semi cover my fat? This is the degree of cuteness. Like, you know, I don't know who design, even when you're going into like Torrid and Lane Bryant, I don't know who the model was or is that they are putting this stuff on, but it wasn't for my body. Let me tell you that. Like, it would just hit where the shirt ended was the most unflattering place. I had so many that were, I don't know, this weird asymmetry thing. Again, it was like beggars can't be choosers. Like, this actually fits you. You just got to take it, you know. Cute. Sorry, girl, you ate the cute out of anything. It may even look kind of cute on a mannequin, but as soon as it gets on you, you're like, no, there's just, it fits. This is the standard, and you just have to be okay with that. And there's some people that can rock it and find good clothes. I don't know where they are shopping, because they are owning their big and beautiful bodies. I don't know. Maybe I was too cheap to find the store. It was so bad. Just so bad. Just nothing was cute. And I don't have a whole high standard. I literally live in the same damn outfit with a different color variation every day, as you can see. On occasion, I will throw in a 49er t-shirt, because there's a 49er game. I will throw on a Cal hoodie, a Stanford hoodie. On a very, very rare occasion, I'll put on some jeans and hate it. I am not a jean girl whatsoever. My body is just not made for jeans. It never was. It isn't. I try to force it. I don't like the smell of jeans. I don't know why it pisses me off. Like, it just smells like a dye. And I've tried many different kinds of jeans, and some don't. And just the way, something with my stomach and my hips, and sometimes it's too low or too high. The boot cut, the leg, I don't know. It just, jeans are not my thing. Jeans are, I'll wear them on occasion, but it's, again, it's torture. It's torture. I do love dresses. I will give you that. If I'm going to go out someplace or do anything, I love to be in a dress. I feel so feminine and flowy and just cute. I love a dress. I used to love like a long skirt. I haven't worn one in a long time. Sometimes, like, it depends if I'm feeling diva-ish during the holidays, I'll wear, you know, like because usually the dresses I wear are kind of flowy, but, you know, like when I'm feeling like diva-ish during the holiday, it'll be like a bodycon kind of thing. I'll definitely like double Spanx that up though. Triple it, okay, you know, whatever it takes, you know, and then just don't look at myself on the side angle. On the front, I'm looking good, you know, just don't turn. It's okay. And then if I do, I'm like, listen, flash back to those pictures where you looked like the football player, the refrigerator. I have a side by side of it, and I'm like, you know, okay, when I look at that one, when I'm feeling like, oh gosh, you know, my stomach, I look at that, I'm like, never mind, you're looking fine. You're looking fine. Like, you're good, girl. Don't even trip on that. Nope, not today. So it's really like humbling to myself and be like, be nice. Be nice. No, you work too hard. You can eat what you want. You can do what you want. Nope, that's okay. And so I just kind of laugh. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You got me. Be nice. You're looking pretty today. You know, but, so starting small with the self-care, the making the bed, you know, and that changed into, I'm going to moisturize my face every day. I'm going to gusha. I don't even know how the hell to say it, but I gusha my face. I'm not as consistent with that. I dry brush my hair, okay? Like, or dry brush my hair. I scalp massage. It's a little tool. It's just a little thing. Takes me less than 30 seconds, a minute, but I'm doing it. And I'm not saying I'm doing it to where, these beauty experts would say maybe it's not worth it. It feels great on my scalp, period, bottom line. That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing it for any of the other side effects. If I happen to have a side effect, fabulous, love it, that's great. But it's just me stopping and me just focusing on me. I take myself out to lunch every once in a while. If I want something, I buy it for myself. If I want a new pair of shoes, I get it without guilt. If I want a new Lulu color top, I get it without guilt. And so those are the ways I show myself self-care, where it's just the little things. Yeah, I'd love a trip to Paris. I'd love to treat myself to that. And I will someday. I'd love to treat myself to a new car. My Bertha out here, she is older than my youngest son. She's on borrowed time. She's at almost 200,000 years old, okay? 200,000 miles on this baby, filled with memories and spilt sippy cups and trips and road trips and barf and you name it, it's happened in that car. You name it. And it has happened in that car. Yes, and use your imagination. It has happened. It has been the home vehicle for all my kids. It's taken kids to college and brought them home again. It has taken them to kindergarten and back again, preschools, and it's just been part of my parenting life. But little Bertha over here, she getting tired. Like, I was driving her today, and sometimes she's like, I'm an old lady, be nice to me. And I just have to be nice to her, and I appreciate every day that she works and I don't have to, even though she's leaking, and I just appreciate I'm not having to go spend a ton of money on a new car, even though there's some really cute new cars out there, even if they're just used cars, like new to me cars. I sometimes see them, I'm like, oh, that's so cute, I would love that. So one day I'll get there, it's fine, just everything is patience. But just really being good, like taking myself out to lunch or buying myself something and feeling worthy of it. Before, I would have so much shame and think of 45 reasons why I didn't deserve a water bottle, or I didn't deserve a new pair of shoes, or if I was to get shoes, let me get the cheapest kind. Now I'm like, I'll spend $150 on shoes because these are comfortable. I'm not getting plantar fasciitis. I could still dance. And that's what matters to me. And so, every once in a while, I will buy myself something that's not Lululemon. I know it's a shock. It's usually on Amazon. So it's pretty, it's non-committal. If I don't like it, it's just going back. But it's the self-care and the slow initiation of it and getting okay and testing the waters and be like, okay, making the bed. That was a few minutes of my time. Okay, doing these things was a few minutes of my time, but it was all a reminder. All those little things were saying, I love you to yourself. And that set up this habit of doing that. And as I continued to do it, the more I did it, the more I craved it, the more I want to be able to do these things. So where I could live my whole day just doing self-care items and be okay. And before, I had this misconception that self-care was selfish. Self-care was selfish. Gosh, I got that so wrong, right? It's the opposite. It's so beautiful to be able to give yourself self-care and self-love. And for the first time, I had really understood that concept of putting on your own face mask. And before, it was so foreign, I could not wrap my mind around it. But after having experienced the depletion, the extreme depletion, the lack of oxygen from giving so much to everybody else, to where I was now, where my cup runneth over, because there's so much love, there's so much care I can give to somebody else and not be in a deficit. I still got a full cup over here because I have taken care of myself from the moment I've woken up until the moment I've gone to sleep. And that doesn't mean I'm still not taking care of other people or doing my obligations as a mom or as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, as somebody with a vision and dreams. And I get to do all those things and I have this full cup. And it's just, it's so great to try something that you're really not sure if this is going to work, and then you try it and it works. It really works. And it's so exciting. And I just want to share, especially for, I just feel like those parents out there, or adults caregiving for their parents now. If you're caring for anybody or anything, an animal even, it is a very delicate balance. And the key to it is taking care of yourself. And I've done it on both ways. And I understand now what I didn't know all those years. And so filling my own cup, and especially if I have this routine in the morning that starts every single day where I'm going into it with abundance. I have abundance. There is no deficit. There is love every corner of my morning to myself. And it feels so good. It feels like I have this ability to now share even more. And you would think it would be the opposite, because I thought it was going to be selfish and now I'd have less time to devote to others. And I do, but the time I am and the things that I can contribute are so much more genuine, are so much more authentic. They are so much more, there's no resentment. There's none of that associated with it. So my celebration this year was for myself. And so I'm really proud of the work that I've done to get here, and to be able to say without feeling shame or embarrassment or awkward, like, I love myself. And that hole that I had in my heart, looking for other people, giving my power up and waiting for other people, especially on a Valentine's Day. We think about this. You know, you're a little girl, and I would have all these envisions of this knight in shining armor and this fairy tale, and someone would swoop me up and they would just know the right things to say and do, and adore me for who I am. And you know, I would remember even being a young girl, and, you know, there would be my crush, and you would get those store-bought Valentines, and you would find the perfect one with the perfect words for your crush. And, you know, you didn't want to give away too much. And, you know, the extra little heart you would dribble, you know, doodle on there, and your name, and you would just, you know, bashfully put it in his little mailbox that you made in school. And you look through all yours looking for his, and you find it, and it says you're totally possum with a dog paw on it. And you're like, oh my gosh, this must mean, do you think he likes me? And, you know, you're putting all this faith in somebody else to fill you with love. And now I feel love because, you know, he said I was possum, and, you know, he must love me, and I'm worthy. And instead of, like, I should have been just sending my own self, you know, Valentines. It's nice to share with other people, but the thing is, I was looking for somebody else to validate me. I was looking for somebody else to tell me I was worthy of being loved. And you know, I gave my power away. And I think even as I grew up, you know, we put all this pressure on, especially, you know, me, I don't know, things have changed in the generations, but we put on pressures to think that guys just know how to get it right. Or, you know, we watch these rom-coms, and, you know, you're you're flying away, and he comes running in like, don't go, I've loved you for forever. And, you know, you want this sweeping off your feet story and experience. And then when you have anything less, you know, for me, I felt so unloved and unworthy and undeserving. And, you know, quite honestly, I gave up too much power. I gave up, you know, all these things. I never said exactly what I wanted, because most of the time I didn't know what it was I wanted. I just wanted somebody to know and then do it for me. Like they were some kind of mind reader, magician, to know how to perfectly, you know, which perfect flowers I'd want, and which year I wanted chocolate, which year I didn't, and which year I wanted, you know, a dinner out versus a dinner in. And, you know, every year changed for me. So how am I supposed to even know? How is anybody else supposed to know if I don't know what I want? And so I think, you know, for Valentine's Day, it has this, for me, it has this thing, you know, my first modeling of love was my parents, and they obviously got divorced at a very young age, and they had a very volatile relationship. But the one thing that they told me, even once they divorced, was your mom and I really loved each other. And my mom would say, I really love your dad. Like, so I'm like, what the hell is this love? Like, love sucks. You just fight and then you separate, and then your kids live in don't live with both parents. Like, I don't like love. Love sucks. I kind of, I watched my aunties and uncles all fight, and my grandma and my grandpa fight, and I just was like, ugh, I'm not a, so I'm not this big lovey-dovey thing. Now, my uncle Jerry and my Aunt Betty, they had a really unique kind of love, but he too, like I said, he had a mistress. Like, I don't know if he had many, and I think he wasn't faithful from what he's told me many times, but like, he had a full-on lady that went on vacations with them. And, for a long time, I just thought she was just Judy. And no, like, Judy was a little more than just Judy. And, it took me a long time to understand this situation. And I was just like, so even their love was far from a perfect love. And then my other aunt, she ended up having somebody live with them. And we were just crazy, right? Like, just, I guess not crazy, just unorthodox. I guess whatever works for you in your marriage, that's between you two. But this is, this was not modeled on those days on Growing Pains and Family Ties and all those shows I grew up watching as a kid, where I thought this was like how the normal people who had a mom, the Huxtables weren't doing this, like how, people, the mom and dad were, and the kids were. And I knew we didn't have my mom, but this stuff wasn't happening there that I was seeing in my family. It was so crazy. And so I think I have this very different kind of view of what love is. And I think that that's definitely kind of influenced my not being this super lovey-dovey, big Valentine's. I'm always like, listen, don't spend the money on flowers on Valentine's Day. Like, I don't need no $80 or $100 whatever dollar, $5 even roses. Like, I don't need that. You want to go buy me roses? Buy me a rose plant. I can look at it all year and be like, he gave me that. Like, I am more of a, I want a gesture that will stay with me for a while versus just a thing. This year I wasn't into chocolate. The only thing I really wanted were those cakes, and she happened to have them yesterday, and I was like, bless, like, so happy. I didn't know what I wanted to eat today, but I knew for damn sure I didn't want to cook. And so, like I was saying, my only one son was here today. And so I was like, I'm thinking, do you want anything for lunch, or what do you want to do? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, okay, I'm thinking I want this. And he was like, sure, let's go. And so him and I went out to lunch, and, I joke around, he treated me to lunch to Valentine's Day and stuff. So, that was sweet. We, chatted, we talked about different things, and, we didn't get to go out to celebrate his brain anniversary, which we usually do because he was sick with pneumonia. So I was like, well, this is kind of a celebration for that, since we didn't get to go. And usually him and I go to Japanese for that. So every once in a while, we've been going to different restaurants while he's been here, and, trying to make the best out of that kind of situation, and teach him to like new cuisines and things that we don't often go to when it's the whole family, because somebody doesn't like this and somebody can't eat this, and this might have peanuts, and it sometimes gets so much. So when it's just the one-on-one, you could really get that experience with him. And so I enjoyed that. So I joke, I'm like, okay, he was my little Valentine today. And just like, that was love. Like, I sent all my kids, like, I used to always make this big deal because I wanted them to know and know love and be able to share it. So I always made them Valentines, and, I would decorate the whole house, and, I would serve heart-shaped pizzas on heart-shaped plates. And, for not being this like romantic person, I really still wanted them, especially as men, as boys that would grow up to be men, and for my daughter to know it doesn't have to be, it's just showing somebody you love. So whether it be your friends, your colleagues, your, whoever it is, your children, your spouse, it doesn't have to be like that. And so, for a little while in it, because obviously Chris and I's relationship is what it is, I had this kind of dilemma. I didn't know what kind of, I wanted to give him something, as far as a card went. I didn't get him a gift. But I wanted to give him something. Like, I wanted to say something to him, because despite where we are, I do care for him. And we have a big history together. We've been together for 24 years of our lives. And I know we're at this crossroads, and so does he. We're not dumb. But I really wanted to say on this day, just to celebrate the good times that we had together, and to realize that we are at this crossroads, and I still appreciate all the good moments we were able to share together. And I know from my perspective, 10% of them were good, and from his, 90% of them were good. I know we have very different views on the relationship, and both I respect, right? I respect that he thinks it was that much, he respects it. He's disappointed, obviously, that he's like that little that you had a good time in this relationship. And then I also really appreciated that he gave me a card. And, at first I was kind of like nervous to open it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't want to write anything like in mine that wasn't true. I didn't want to write anything awkward and be like, oh, I love you so much. For so many years, I said all the things that I thought people wanted me to say, that would make him feel okay and feel better and feel loved. And, what would make him feel loved today and all. And I sacrificed myself in it sometimes. And so to me, this year, it was really important for me to communicate what was true. The truth was, thank you. Like, I am so grateful for all the good times that we've had together. I'm grateful for all the memories. And I still, like, my goal is, regardless of what crossroads we're at, like, I still would love to be in a position where you and I are friends. And, and all I've ever asked for then, and all I've ever asked for now, is kindness. That's all I've ever needed, and it's all I've ever wanted. And I think that if we could just become friends, that would be the first step. And I think if, as friends, you expect something so different out of the other person than if they're your spouse or significant other or partner. And I just want to be friends. Like, at the end of the day right now, that's kind of where I've been. That's been my stance for the last couple of years, is I want to be friends. His frustration is he wants to be more than friends. And I can't be more than friends with somebody I'm not friends with. And it's impossible for me. And when I'm feeling, attacked and belittled and all the things I feel, based on some of his actions, it repels me. It doesn't push me further. In the past, it would draw me in more, and I'd want to fix it. And I'd do all these things to overcompensate and make him feel better and not behave the ways that he didn't like that I behaved. And I'm just not okay with sacrificing who I am now. And I really, at the end of the day, like I say, he is not a bad person. We are not great people together all the time, but he is not a bad person. And I really do want him. He's had a really tough life too. And he deserves to feel all the love and be shown the love that he deserves. And, today that person isn't me. And that makes me sad. But I have to be honest about that. And he has the ability to go find that love. And I do know for part of it is that love is inside him. So I hope that, number one, he learns how to love and accept himself, because that was a big catalyst and change for me. And I don't know if it would change for him, but, as he learns to take care of himself more. And, I'm super proud of, the things that he's doing to integrate that into his lifestyle, that, hopefully he finds that fulfillment on the inside, to where he is in the morning waking up and his cup overfloweth with love, because he's finally caring for himself. And, like I say, I just want him to be happy too. He deserves to be happy. And if it's not with me, because I can't give him the things that he needs to be happy anymore, I don't care if it's somebody else. Like, I just want him to be happy. I'm not in a position to change to be who he wants me to be. I'm on path to change who I need to be, who I've always been. And I understand that some people are going to like that and some people are not. And that's okay. That's totally okay, because the people that do like it, those are my people. And, you know, those are the people I was meant to be around. And the other people, they're cool and they're great and I wish them the best, but they're just not my people. And that's okay. Not everybody needs to be your people. Not everybody has to like you. You just have to like you. And then if you're lucky enough to find other people in your tribe, it's such a blessing. Like today in my dance class, I just looked around at one point and I'm like, I genuinely like love these people. I'm not, you know, like I don't know them well enough to love, but I look around and everybody is just doing their own thing and they're having fun. And so many people are so nice and supportive. You know, we would joke around like, hey there, Valentine, you know, how are we doing? And you're just in there and it was just all good vibes, all nice people. These are the people that like get me. They understand, they see me in my rawest form and they still like me and they still care. And maybe there's some people that don't, they just don't dance near me or they don't come around. They don't want my energy. That's okay. I'm totally cool with that. So I just want to be around people that say, hey, I kind of like her energy. I like her vibe. I like what she's bringing to the table, and not judging me because I'm being too extra or too much. Like, that's okay. Go over here with a group of people that aren't being that extra and too much. Like, there is something for everybody. And so I say all that, and I just really want to say too, like, I appreciated so much his card because I had all this apprehension when I went to go read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be like, you know, like a love bomb, and I was like afraid of this, and it wasn't. And I think it just said the most beautiful thing in there is just kind of, it said like, it was just such like it was just like a pretty card, and it just said like what today was for him, you know, like it was just, or, you know, I don't know, his, you know, I know he reads these cards and the things, but I'm going to read part of it, just the what was imprinted on it, because it really like touched me. It really meant like a lot to not be kind of love bombed and feel like guilty because I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And so I appreciated what it said. And so I'm going to share it. It says, today is for thinking about the people who make a difference in our lives, the ones we want the best for and care about, no matter what. That's why I'm thinking about you today. And it just like, it just really touched me. And I thought, yeah, like that's strange, right? To get that kind of a card from somebody after you've been together for 24 years. But it was honestly, out of every Valentine's card I've ever got, that was the one that like, it meant the most to me, because and then he was sweet enough to get me a Lululemon gift card. So, you know, he knew the way to my heart, which was great, because I was like, ugh, I really hope, usually like many years I want C's, but I'm just not. I got like 2 boxes at Christmas, and not that I care. It's just like, for some reason, they've been like kind of melty, and I'm kind of picky with my chocolate. Like, once it melts, it doesn't taste that good to me anymore. And then like it rehardens, and it just, and then certain days I want certain, you know, like I want certain things. And so when I want it, I'll go get it. I have no problem in eating a whole damn box, but it was just like, I just am not in the mood for it right in this particular time. So I was like, ugh, I really hope he doesn't waste some money on it. Then I'm gonna feel obligated to eat it. So again, like, this card just meant so much to me, because it was like, he just wanted the best for me. And like, that's what I just say, like, I want for, like I've been saying, I just really want him to be happy. I just and that he could see and want the best for me. That meant something so much, and I appreciated it so much. Like, it just was like, it was like, it made my day. It was like a sigh of relief. It was genuine, and I believe what he, you know, the card, and it was like pretty. It doesn't say like, it's not all lovey-dovey, it's nothing. It's just the Happy Hearts Day. Like, it has a little bling, you know me, I love my bling. And so I just thought it was so sweet. And then, you know, like, I didn't think about it, like at the gym, one of my friends, she gave me this beautiful heart cookie with some sprinkles. Another friend gave me a bunch of Godiva chocolates. Like, people are so nice. Like, it just, I mean, it's just the little things, like, to say, like, I love you and care. I was telling my daughter, I was like, I was thinking this morning, I should have went to Costco and bought like a bunch of roses and then just handed everybody roses that are like my friends. But I was like, this is so awkward. We're going to be in class for 2 hours and then everybody's stuck with these damn roses and be like, what am I going to do with this single rose and stuff? But I was just like, okay, if it's not today, at some point, I just want to do something to like, to just say I love you to them in a way, like, and like I thank you and I appreciate you and I appreciate your energy and coming, because if it was just me and Javier, that would be cool and fun, but it's so much different when you have that whole energy, which is my only like thing I think about sometimes if I would do it on YouTube. But I love it because that's where I started and that's where I'm comfortable and I can commit in my own commitment in my own time, so like it works with my schedule and life. But on the same turn, there is something magical about sharing energy and space with other people. It is not replicable. It is not you can't put words to it. It's just this life force in the room, and it pushes me even harder. You know, I'm all of a sudden like Beyonce on a stage, I think, in my mind. You know, there's some hair flips and there's some, you know, a lot of hips, a lot of hip action, a lot of hip movements. And I don't know what I look like. Again, like I say, I don't look in the mirror, so I try not to. Every once in a while I catch a glimpse and I'm like, oh my, there's a lot of boobs, there's a lot of stuff jiggling, you know, and things. But I just try to not like laugh or look at it. You know, I'm in my zone, I'm in my flow, I'm my own, you know, character out there. But yeah, so I just want to say, I always like, and I just can't think of like what it is I want to do. Like, I just want to like give everybody a card, or I just want to I want to show my appreciation and somehow, and I just can't think of how. If you have any ideas, please give me some. I'm like, should I go on to like Google or ChatGPT and say, how do I, you know, say thank you to all my gym classmates? You know, maybe bake them cookies, or, you know, what do I do? Give me some ideas. So anyways, today is Valentine's Day. And so I hope that you have been filled with some kind of love. I hope you know that you are loved. And I hope that if anything else that you've learned, that you hopefully already know what it took me 47 years to learn. I hope that you love yourself, because if I love myself, then that means I am somebody. And that means that it's impossible for nobody to love me. And just loving myself has given me the privilege of loving others more, deeper, more honestly, more giving. And I'm so grateful for that. And I really hope that you experience that. And if you do, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I hope my kids experience that. I hope my friends experience that. And I hope that the people around me know that as much energy as they say I give them, they give me at times 10. And I am so grateful to be a part of them. I'm so grateful for every lunch they invite me to, every conversation they include me in, every silly compliment, everything that they give to me is so noted and sealed here in my heart. I really hope they all know that, from like the little things, like my friend Catherine today, she had a mat for me and, you know, a spot for me in the gym, and just, it's just little things that just really just say I love you to somebody else. And so like this, tuning into me on Valentine's Day, which won't really actually be Valentine's Day because I am going to be like months, unless I don't publish them until next year. But I'm like, here, I'm a whole year ahead. I just want to say, I love you. I appreciate you for giving me this space and this time to share a piece of my life again with you. And I hope that in some way it either motivates you or inspires you to do the opposite. You know, like you are learning from my mistakes, like, oh girl, no. That you can just become who you are without fear and without worry, and still love and appreciate yourself, and know that if anybody else has something harsh or mean or unkind to say, that it doesn't matter. What matters is that you care about yourself and that you're a good person and that you're trying to be better than you were before, that you are open-minded to change and change is really hard. It's hard. We make mistakes. We're adapting. We're trying to make these new habits. And sometimes when we're in heated, elevated states, it's really challenging to go back and use that new left hand tool that you're learning. And you make mistakes and you fall on your face and you say things you don't want to say and you do things you don't want to do. And then you go back and you think about them, and don't be mean. Don't go back and be like, I should have did this. I should have did this. There's a way to have a conversation in your head and learn learn that resilience and say, okay, how did I feel when I did this way? What's something else I can do? So when that time comes and you're heated and you're elevated, you already have a response planned. And it may not go perfect again. You go back to the drawing board, oops, that didn't work either. We remember too late. Okay. But be really nice to yourself. Be really kind and know that we are all just trying to get by. We are all trying to live our lives. And the goal for me is if I have 100 hours left, I'm going to be spending my time doing those things that I would want to be doing in those 100 days that I have left, or 100 hours, or whatever it may be. Because at some point that is true. I don't know when it is. I don't want to know when it is. But at some days, sometime that will be the truth. And I will only have 100 hours left or 100 days left to live. So why not live every day now as if I only had 100 days or 100 hours left? So I say all that to say I went really long today, but I'm so happy to be on this journey. I'm so happy to share with you guys. And I hope you have a wonderful evening and a wonderful Valentine's Day. Mwah. I love you. Thank you.